Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
So this one's going to be a little bit different. We got a mix of different things we're going to just touch on. Mostly Earth changes because there's things happening there, but there's a lot of other stuff going on too.
I like to call it a hodgepodge.
Yeah, this is a hodgepodge, definitely. So we had seen this before. A massive bunch of quote-unquote shipping vessels from China. Previously, we saw them off of the Galapagos, off of the coast of Ecuador. Here we're seeing them off of Chile. And we're not talking a couple dozen here. We're talking like over 400 ships. And I was saying to Cindy, so that's a Chilean naval vessel. And this is one of those fishing boats. Yeah, I'm sure they could get 50, maybe even 100 sailors on there.
Easily. I feel the deceit in this. It's thick.
So the Chilean Navy is closely monitoring 11 Chinese fishing vessels that are in its zone, its economic zone. Yet there's over 400 others in the area as well. And there was a similar situation going on, as we said, off of Ecuador's coast. Who's to say, how many people could have been transferred, when you have this type of thing happening on a regular basis, and perhaps landing on shore and making their way. I mean, we've seen massive caravans of migrants out there, massive, infiltrating that, coming over the border. There you go.
Well, yeah, and of course they would disguise everything, even this, and make it out to be a good story, like, oh, this is just shipping vessels.
Yeah, and this touches on the Galapagos Island issue as well. Just something to keep an eye on. So what happens when the 1% go remote? We've talked about the 1%. We've talked about the Great Divide, how it's getting bigger all the time. So what do you read into when the 1% themselves are, say, leaving places like California, San Francisco, LA, heading for other shores, even heading for other states? We saw Elon Musk, go from California to Austin, Texas, and we talked about how, there's a massive migration going on business-wise, as well as, just families up and then leaving certain areas.
Yeah, there is. And people, they feel they need to go. The energies are getting so intense. People can't hardly tolerate it anymore.
We just going back like 3-4 years ago, right before the eclipse, more like 2016, 2017, we saw this massive influx of the ultra rich gobbling up properties in New Zealand and also in Australia. And people were wondering, why are they heading to the South Hemisphere? What are they worried about? And of course, a lot of conjecture about war. War could be something, as well as the earth changes themselves. But this migration has just kept going on. And economically, we have nearly 8 million Americans fallen into poverty levels. Just this summer, since summer. We're talking like 5 months. It's crushing. The lockdown situation is crushing people. It's destroying. 48% of small businesses say they're not going to make it. 48%. It's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And meanwhile, we got 45 of 50 of the biggest companies turning profits and doing just fine.
Yes, they are. And that's just disgusting. I look at it and I think about all the families who are squeezing or pulling together as much as they can to make a good Christmas for their kids this year, because people have lost so many jobs. And look at these companies. I mean, it's so obvious what's happening.
It's a top-down control system that we see. And, in my mind, I would love to see the people of the world say, you know what? Let's make corporations illegal. Let's dissolve all corporations. Maybe the only thing you would be able to keep is be like an LLC at most, or let that go too. And nothing but sole proprietorships or partnerships of a certain amount of people. So, things couldn't be hidden in the hands and just, kept on a stranglehold wealth-wise by so few people. It's through the corporations that they do this and control everything. And pretty soon all we're going to have is just a handful of big corporations, controlled by the elite, and no mom and pops, no, small size businesses or even mid-sized businesses. They're all going to get wiped out in this horrible wave that we're seeing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the corporations have the ability and the financial backing to take advantage of whoever they want, and they do.
And they also have, all these loopholes. And so that the people that are running and controlling these corporations, they can't be touched. Right. They could do whatever, but they can't be touched. Boy, I would love to see the world rise up and say, you know what? Corporations are a big part of how we're being controlled. Why don't we make them illegal? And I know there's going to be people that say they just can't conceive of that. But, we need real tremendous change, significant change, not baby steps. There's no time for baby steps with the world heading off the edge of a cliff right now. And at the same time, the world is waking up to everything that's going on. This is one way in which we have been slowly, we've seen the end of the middle class, and it's just basically haves and have-nots. Yeah. And eventually it'll be like 0.25%, a quarter of 1% of the population, and the rest.
Mm-hmm. I know it's not looking really good.
Nope. And we just see this. It's ridiculous that society is allowing this, and this is what we need to be speaking up about, as well as other things that are being forced. Mm-hmm. Magma intrusion beneath Long Valley Caldera confirmed. So this is from Strange Sounds. I actually dreamt about Long Valley last night, and I dreamt about something like a twin massive quake of like epic proportion. But Cindy said she got from the guides it was something more like a past life, perhaps even Atlantean related, something of a 10.0 with two of them happening. Yeah. And all of a sudden inundation of water in a city. And I thought it was interesting too, because you had said that our history is so hidden that we don't recognize the fact that we've talked about very high civilizations, but even civilizations that might look pretty damn familiar to us.
Right, different civilizations, even though you felt like you were in modern times and it seemed like it was this modern times, we've had many, many, many of these modern times as we know it today.
Yeah, our history is definitely hidden. So, and this is the scientific paper that you're talking about. Magma intrusion beneath Long Valley Caldera is confirmed by temporal changes in gravity. So in other words, it's not gases, it's solid material actually filling up and swelling underneath. Now, they do say they don't expect it to erupt within the next 100 years, thousands of years perhaps. And of course, the last time it did go was over 700,000 years ago. But I just thought it was interesting because I just dreamed about Long Valley, and I've always felt that it's more likely than Yellowstone. So, and this is also out of geology, geoscience world, talking about seismic evidence for significant melt. In other words, magma that is actually under there. Now, this was interesting too. There's all sorts of strange sounds that we've been hearing about for the last 3-4 years. And so you have these weird noises in Sydney, Australia, mystery booms and rumblings in England and the US. And there's video here that you can listen to. You can listen to the audio. Some of these are rather annoying to hear. It's kind of like somebody grating their nails on the chalkboard type thing. But what was interesting was I asked the guides about Long Valley and, what is the likelihood of the Long Valley? And you said we would have warning by strange sounds being heard.
They did. They said that there would be strange sounds like the energies coming from above and the energies that are below on Earth would mingle, and we would have that as a warning.
So that's interesting. But they feel that the chances of Long Valley erupting in our lifetime is still relatively low.
Pretty darn low. Mm-hmm.
So that's good. We don't need no supervolcano eruptions. And over here we do have a massive landslide causing major destruction to wildlife in Butte Inlet, and this is in British Columbia, Canada. And it's still on my bucket list to get up to British Columbia, do some Bigfoot hunting, some big camping. I want to just get out there and just camp for weeks.
Yes.
So we have a wave of debris that caused a lot of destruction to the forest, wiping out critical habitat for many animals, causing hazards for marine traffic in the area as well. According to a helicopter survey of the site on the 14th, landslide is believed to have happened in late November following heavy rains that struck the region. So they just discovered it now to destroy a lot of the forest, and there's lots and lots of flooding everywhere in the valley and in the inlet as well. The landslide pushed trees, rocks, and mud into Butte Inlet. It's completely changed the course of the Southgate River as well, as you could see here as they're flying over. Or are they in a tram? I'm not sure. It can't be a tram. It must be a helicopter. But, we've seen this before. There's been a lot of landslides all around the world. And again, that's a danger in these mountainous areas when we get so much precipitation. And we have snow piling up at an unprecedented rate in Japan as well. Look at that. That's pretty darn deep. Season's most powerful cold air mass is bringing remarkably heavy snow to wide swaths of Japan. On the 17th, meteorologists said the snow is falling at an unprecedented rate due to a combination of unseasonably cold Siberian air and unseasonably warm temperatures. Another event that we talked about and then checked with the guides, Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers was talking about Neptune.
Yes, Neptune.
And, Neptune and Uranus are interesting planets out there, those gas giants. They're not quite Saturn and Jupiter, but they are interesting. And so a storm that's been there for quite a while completely changed directions on Neptune, which, from what Ben is getting, means that the magnetic activity of the planet has perhaps changed, making me think, wow, is that? So they're talking that it's a pole shift, and then he's talking about gravitational waves coming in, energy, coming in and changing this and having changed other star systems as well. And I asked you, what does that bode for us? Like, how much time do we have before, our poles complete the reversal? Because they're obviously hiding data from us. Everybody knows this, Ben Davidson has made that statement. David, DAP 2030, we were talking about that as well. He's saying, yeah, almost definitely. There's a lack of data coming out. They're trying to keep it from us, how rapidly the poles are actually moving magnetically.
And then this one is difficult for me to articulate because they're telling me that Neptune, this energy that's going through Neptune, is very specific to Neptune. And it doesn't mean that there's like this big galactic wave going through, hit Neptune, is going to come to us. That's not what that's about. Somehow this is specific to Neptune, and it's not going to come and get us next. That's what I'm getting. It's just hard to explain.
So it's not like we need to worry about an immediate, pole reversal, crustal displacement type event.
Right.
And they had said before when we were asking about the superwave, the galactic superwave coming in, that energy wave that will change everything, change us. Do they still see it being a certain timeline out? Because before we were talking over a decade.
Yeah, definitely. It could be quite a ways out, 20 years, 30 years. It's out there a ways, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, and again, we talked about Diehold as well. He's zoned in on 2046, which that feels feasible.
Yeah, it does feel feasible.
Okay, so yeah, timing-wise, although we don't get the feeling it would be quite the ELE, extinction level event that he is talking about, where half of the globe is totally toasted, kind of like the movie Knowing, and only the people in the cave survive. not quite so.
No, not quite so horrible.
Well, that's thankful as well. And here in Electroverse, we see 210 road closures in Himachal Pradesh, heavy snows blanket northern India. The extremes are there, and we've heard from people in Australia saying it's cooler than they would expect right now.
Yep. So these are things, this is kind of like a little bit like a frog in boiling water, but it's going to get more and more intense each year. But people will be able to adapt.
And as we said, Al Gore, way back in 2000 was saying, we had 5 years or so and there'd be no Arctic sea ice, but we still do. Arctic sea ice volume this year right now is exactly where it was last year as far as total Arctic sea ice volume. So, no change from last year at this moment. It is running less than the average between 2004 and 2013. But then, you have gains in Greenland as well. And so, it's a mixed bag, but everything is changing. That's really the bottom line. We have a severe metastorm Elena forming near Cyprus, landfall expected in Lebanon on December 17th. And so many areas in the desert have been getting unusual rainfalls and even snow. We saw so much of Saudi Arabia that was covered. And we've talked also about how in Roman times, when we go back to the biblical times of Christ and all, North Africa wasn't like what we see now. It was way more productive with food. It was much more of a breadbasket. So this one's going to be making landfall on the 17th, winds of about 50 kilometers an hour. So, not heavy winds, but heavy rainfall is associated with this storm. So we could expect some flooding going on in Lebanon and Israel as well. And over here, we have a 6.1 quake that hits Mindanao in the Philippines, very active area, depth of 16 miles. Quite a few people would have felt this one, as much as 370,000 people in the area. No tsunami, thankfully. And then over here, we have another interesting article about Yellowstone. Current seismic swarm in Yellowstone reactivates ancient fault formed after last supervolcano eruption. And, this one and Long Valley went off within 100,000 years of each other. And interestingly enough, right around the same time as the last full reversal, magnetic pole reversal that took and held. Because there's been a bunch of excursions where the poles will shift and then they'll bop back into place after even years of having shifted. So at some point in time, the South Pole will be pointing north and vice versa.
Yeah, we got some pretty interesting stuff going on.
So we can see this swarm is over here in red. It's nowhere near as big as the one in 2008, 2009. But it's interesting that it has basically perhaps awakened an old fault. And these things can happen. And we had talked about some ancient faults that really haven't done much for a very long time over in the Appalachians, but they're still there. They are still there. And if, say, for instance, New Madrid goes, which many people are expecting by 2024, 2025, then we might see activity on the eastern side of the country that we haven't seen in our lifetimes for sure.
Absolutely, yep.
And taking a look at volcanic activity, we have new activity and unrest reported for 5 volcanoes from December 9th to 15th. And during that same period, we still have ongoing activity for 14 others. And we expect others to come online. And Etna is busy there. And we'll watch Vesuvius and Pele. Pele's showing signs. As always, guys, make sure you're subscribed to both channels and click the bell so you get some notifications every now and then, hopefully. And we want to thank some new Patreons.
We do want to send a huge thank you out to Steve, Casey, and Randall. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. We are super grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It enables us to keep going, and we will keep going. And so, guys, also, God bless and namaste.
God bless and namaste.